Welcome to Talk Tickers. If you are tuning in, you're looking for the signal in the noise. We aren't here for the hype cycles, the celebrity tweets, or the clickbait.
We're here to break down the events moving the markets.
Exactly. The regulatory landscape shifting beneath our feet and the operational realities of the companies you're watching. I'm your host, and as always, I'm joined by our resident expert.
Good to be here. And today we are looking at a situation that is pretty much the textbook definition of operational turbulence.
Absolutely. We're turning our attention to the brain-computer interface sector, or BCI, specifically a deep dive on Neuralink.
And we should be clear, we're not talking about the sci-fi stuff today.
No uploading memories, no cyborgs. We are looking at this through the lens of an institutional investor. We're talking FDA hurdles, some pretty critical trial data, and a massive change within the regulatory body itself that, just happened in early 2025.
Right. This is a story about physics, biology, and politics all colliding at once.
This is a no-fluff analysis. And as always, a quick disclaimer. We're stating facts and analysis based on current available data. Nothing you hear today is financial advice.
We're just reading the tape.
So let's set the scene. To understand where we are right now, we have to look at this breaking development from early 2025. It's not a tech breakthrough.
No, it's a personnel breakdown.
You're talking about the administrative upheaval in Washington, effective February 2025, a significant reduction in force at the FDA.
Reduction in force is putting it politely. We saw a termination of FDA employees that included roughly 20 staff members.
And these weren't just any staff members.
No. They were specifically within the FDA's Office of Neurological and Physical Medicine Devices.
The exact division reviewing brain implant applications.
They're the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And this is where the narrative gets, very complicated. These firings involve the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
Which, as we all know, is led by Neuralink's founder.
Right. So you can see the problem. It raises some massive questions about conflicts of interest.
It feels like a governance paradox. The regulator is being dismantled by the regulated.
It does. And this isn't just speculation. This triggered immediate congressional scrutiny.
That letter from the House Committee on Energy and Commerce.
Yes, from ranking members Pallone and DeGette to the HHS secretary. They explicitly questioned the, and I'm quoting here, indiscriminate and unauthorized termination of these workers.
And the timing, they noted, was suspicious,
to say the least. The letter highlighted that these firings occurred at the exact same time FDA officials were raising concerns over the safety of Neuralink's trials.
So the people raising the red flags were removed during the safety review.
That's a governance nightmare. You take away the inspectors, the flags disappear. But the underlying risk, the biological risk, that remains.
Of course.
And the letter also pointed out that these layoffs included experts in inspection and criminal investigation. So the whole oversight mechanism is potentially paused.
But let's back up. To understand why those inspectors were raising flags in the first place, we need to look at the device's actual performance. We have human trial data now.
We do, and it's a mixed bag. On one hand, you have a regulatory win. Neuralink got FDA breakthrough device designation for a speech restoration implant in May 2025. That's a bullish signal.
It shows they can still move paper through the system. But the reality of the current motor control trials, there have been some mechanical failures. Let's talk about patient one, Nolan Arbaugh.
Right. He got the implant in January 2024. The tech is incredibly complex. A robotic sewing machine inserts 64 threads over 1,000 electrodes into the motor cortex.
And at first, it was a huge QR win. He was playing chess with his mind.
It did work. But then the retraction issue happened. In the weeks after surgery, about 85% of those electrode threads, they detached.
85%? That sounds catastrophic.
It's certainly not what you want. It meant a huge drop in effective electrodes, which caused the bits per second, the BPS, to plummet.
And BPS is the key metric here, right? It's speed and accuracy.
It's everything. You lose the threads, you lose the bandwidth.
So how did they fix it? Another surgery?
No, and this is the interesting part. They didn't replace the threads. They changed the algorithm to be more sensitive to the signals from the few that were left.
They fixed a hardware problem with a software patch.
Basically, yes. Which is clever engineering, but it doesn't answer the biological question. Why did they pull out?
So what's the theory?
The leading theory is something called pneumocephalus. It's essentially trapped air inside the skull after the surgery.
Air in the skull. Break that down.
Sure. The brain isn't a solid rock. It's a gelatinous mass. When you open the skull, air gets in. As that air moves or gets absorbed, the brain shifts slightly.
And the threads pull out.
If they're not anchored well enough, yes. It's like putting a fork in Jell-O and then shaking the bowl.
That's a vivid picture. And this connects back to the original friction with the FDA, doesn't it?
Not at all. Back in early 2023, the FDA actually rejected Neuralink's initial application for human trials. And the reasons are still very relevant today.
Okay, let's run through the top 3.
First, the lithium battery. The FDA worried about it failing or overheating. A thermal event inside your skull is, obviously fatal.
Right. You can't just pull over and let it cool down.
Exactly. Second was wire migration, which is literally what we just saw happen with patient 1. The FDA predicted this exact problem.
That's a third.
Device removal. The upgrade problem.
You don't want an iPhone 1 stuck in your head forever?
Precisely. But the body forms what's called glial scarring around foreign objects. It's the body's defense mechanism. It grows over the implant.
Which makes it hard to remove.
Very hard. And you risk tearing the cortex. The FDA just wasn't convinced they had a safe way to do it.
So to summarize, a device that has proven wire migration, concerns about removal, and a regulatory body that's now missing the very experts who are reviewing those exact risks.
That is the landscape right now, a high-risk environment.
Okay, let's pivot to the investor context. Because despite all this chaos, money is pouring into the BCI sector. What does the market look like?
It's moving from a science project to a real asset class. We're looking at growth from about, say, $2.9 billion now to somewhere between 12 and 13 billion by 2034.
Wow. That's a CAGR of over 17%.
It's aggressive growth. And the unit economics, if they can stabilize the tech, are very lucrative.
What are we talking?
The target is maybe 10,000 U.S. patients a year, device price around $40,000, but the real kicker is the recurring revenue.
The subscription, a SaaS model for your brain.
You got it. Recurring software fees, maybe $200 a month. You hit those targets, you're looking at $1.5 billion in annual revenue. Baseline.
But they're not the only ones in this race. Who's the competition?
The primary rival is a company called Synchron. They're backed by some heavy hitters, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates.
And their approach is different.
Fundamentally different. They use something called the stentrode. Instead of opening the skull, they go in through the jugular vein.
Through a blood vessel.
Yes. They push this sensor stent up into a blood vessel in the brain, so no open brain surgery.
Much less invasive. What's the trade-off?
Bandwidth. You get fewer data points because you aren't directly in the neurons. But the safety profile is significantly higher.
It's the tortoise and the hare. Neuralink is the high-risk hare. Synchron is the safer tortoise.
That's a good way to put it. Then you have BlackRock Neurotech, not the asset manager backed by Tether. They use the older Utah array technology.
Rigid spikes, right?
Right. Proven tech, but it causes more tissue damage over time. And then you have Paradromics, which is focused purely on high data rates.
So the market is splitting. High performance and high risk versus lower performance but higher safety.
That's a fair assessment. And the winner might just be whoever solves the biological bottlenecks first.
Speaking of bottlenecks, let's go deeper on sector risks. We mentioned glial scarring, but why is that such a deal breaker for the whole asset class?
Because if the body attacks the implant and covers it in scar tissue, the signal degrades. The scar acts like an insulator.
And the device stops working after a few years.
Exactly. Your recurring revenue goes to zero. And worse, you have a patient with a bricked device that needs a high-risk surgery to remove it. That destroys your customer LTV and skyrockets your liability.
Which brings us to another risk, neurosecurity.
Cybersecurity for the brain. The device uses wireless communication, Bluetooth basically. If a third party can interfere with that signal.
Or intercept the data. We're talking about the privacy of thought.
Or manipulation of action. If you can write to the brain, not just read from it, the implications are terrifying. The liability is, well, unquantifiable.
And then there's the current political situation. This regulatory paradox.
It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you might think having the founder involved with the agency cutting the regulators could fast-track approval.
Short-term bullish.
Maybe. But long-term, it creates a liability minefield. If a product is pushed through without proper oversight and then fails, the litigation will be immense. And markets hate that kind of uncertainty.
Plus, if the FDA lacks the staff to actually process applications, you might see delays, not speed.
Exactly. The congressional letter specifically asked about that. You can't just automate a safety inspection for a Class 3 medical device.
Okay, let's shift gears. We've hit the history, the tech, the politics, the risks. Now for our favorite segment.
The "this is not financial advice" segment.
Precisely. We're in a hedge fund pod, pitching an idea to the investment committee. It's outrageous, but plausible. What's the trade?
I'm calling this trade the glial scar spread.
I love it. Break it down.
It's a long short play. The long short is based on the idea that no matter who wins, Neuralink, Synchron, whoever, they all need materials that can survive inside the human body.
So you're not picking the horse, you're buying the racetrack.
Exactly. You don't buy the BCI companies themselves. The binary risk is too high. You buy the picks and shovels. Specifically, manufacturers of ultra-thin polyamide substrates and high-density hermetic packaging foundries.
Why those two?
Because the number one failure point is moisture getting into the electronics. Hermetic packaging sealing a chip so tightly that not a single molecule of water gets in for a decade is incredibly hard. The foundry that can do that are rare, and they get paid no matter what.
Okay, that's the long. Makes sense. What's the short?
This is the controversial part. You short traditional stroke rehabilitation centers and legacy AAC tablet vendors.
The eye tracking tablets.
Right. Here's the thesis. We're forecasting a national coverage determination from Medicare for BCI by roughly 2029.
Once Medicare pays, the game changes.
Overnight, the standard of care for a stroke victim shifts. Why pay for a year of physical therapy to twitch a finger when an implant can give you mouse control in a week?
You're predicting a massive capital reallocation.
Hundreds of millions of dollars redirected away from that legacy tech. The analog rehab market is playing checkers, and a digital solution is about to wipe them off the board.
That is ruthless. Is there a hedge? This all relies on the tech actually working.
The hedge is neuroliability insurance underwriters.
Explain that.
As we said, responsibility gets blurry. If a user with a chip crashes their car, was it them, or did the chip glitch?
The litigation will be endless.
A whole new subsector of law. The companies that underwrite this specific kind of liability are going to see premiums skyrocket. It's a perfect hedge. If the tech works perfectly, the short pays off. If the tech is messy and creates lawsuits, the hedge pays off.
The glial scar spread. Long the supply chain, short the analog rehab, hedge with liability insurance. That is disturbingly plausible.
That's the job.
Let's wrap this up. We've got the retraction issue, the FDA firings. What's the one thing listeners should watch in the next 6 months?
Watch those breakthrough designations. We mentioned Neuralink got one for a speech implant. That's good. But watch if that actually translates to a trial start date.
Why is that the tell?
Because designations are paper. Approvals to actually cut skin are hard. If the FDA staff is truly decimated, that start date will slip. And if it slips, the burn rate eats the company alive.
So the takeaway is, Neuralink has incredible technical potential. 1,024 channels is no joke, but it's facing massive biological and political headwinds.
Correct. The market is turning from a science project into a multi-billion-dollar race. But the battle isn't just technology anymore. It's about whether the regulatory environment will be stable enough to support it.
And for those listening who want to dig deeper, and you should go review the February 2025 congressional letters regarding the FDA. It is all public record.
Absolutely. Read the source documents, not just the tweets. The alpha is in the footnotes.
That is going to do it for this deep dive. Remember, nothing you heard here was financial advice. We're just tracking the tickers and watching the wires, hopefully the ones that stay in the brain. Thanks for listening to Talk Tickers.
See you next time.